Members of PNAC included Dick Cheney, Donald Rumsfeld, Jeb Bush, Scooter Libby, William Crystal, and Paul Wolfowitz.
Faction. A small faction for what possible gain?
Describing the difficulty in projecting force, they write the process of transformation is likely to be a long one, absent some catastrophic and catalyzing event, like a new Pearl Harbor.
Treason. The cabal of neoconservatives at PNAC, I think you all know what that is, who planned this war, Cheney, Rumsfeld, Wolfowitz, Libby, Pearl.
They were referred to as the crazies.
This cabal knew the American people would not stand for a war against Iraq unless there was, as they put it in their own document, a new Pearl Harbor.
And lo and behold, there came 9/11. What a gift. What a gift. They actually said this before 9/11. Barring a, quote, new Pearl Harbor event, we won't be able to get the stupid people to do what we want to do. Because the stupid people won't support us when our bloodthirsty wars and going and killing a bunch of people so we can secure the energy reserves. They won't support it. And they're right. They wouldn't support it.
Confused between the fear of an unknown enemy and an ill-repressed thirst for revenge, Americans flatly accepted a war, the invasion of Afghanistan, that had already been planned to the smallest detail.
Our grief has turned to anger, and anger to resolution. Whether we bring our enemies to justice or bring justice to our enemies, justice will be done.
The lies. The biggest one in modern history, 9/11. What a farce.
19 hijackers of the planes crashed into the World Trade Center towers, into the Pentagon, and into the rural area in Pennsylvania.
Seen from up close, the official version soon started to show some serious weaknesses. Too many curious events, too many inconsistencies, too many coincidences pointed at the possibility that the truth had been somewhat different from what we had been told. This set off an unprecedented investigation on the internet. Thousands of independent researchers from all over the world ended up bringing to light so many faults in the official version that it legitimized suspicion that the US administration had some kind of role in the attacks. From flight amateurs who perform highly acrobatic maneuvers without ever having piloted a jet in their life, to passports, personal wills, and terrorists' bandanas conveniently emerging from a hole where the plane cannot be found. From an entire Boeing 757 disappearing in a 15-foot wide hole, to modern steel buildings collapsing against the most fundamental laws of physics, it has become very difficult today to maintain that the official version reflects what truly happened on that day. In fact, in 2006, almost half of Americans believed that the Bush administration covered up the truth about 9/11. And the protests of those requesting a new, truly independent investigation keep increasing by the day.
How incredible is it that anyone in their right mind would buy this ridiculous version that all these so-called experts in the mainstream media are telling us? That Osama bin Laden and 19 hijackers, 5 of which are verified to be alive to this day, that these guys were responsible for this act, including Mohammed Atta. Who knows Mohammed Atta, who he is?
Atta, Mohammed Atta, leader of Al-Qaeda's 9/11 hijackings. From Prague comes a Czech intelligence report of a photograph allegedly showing Mohammed Atta meeting with a high-ranking Iraqi intelligence officer. The photograph of the supposed meeting is never made publicly available.
The lead hijacker of 9/11, supposedly. Mohammed Atta, this is not me making this up, this is a fact. Mohammed Atta was snorting cocaine and drinking booze in strip joints in Florida.
There was always drinking, always drinking. If it wasn't wine, it was beer or liquor or whatever. There was always drinking, always. And they had massive supplies of cocaine. Muhammad and all these people that he was with, they were drunk and stoned out of their freaking minds.
That's Muhammad Atta, the lead hijacker. One day snorting cocaine and drinking booze and having sex with strippers. The next day flying a jihadic mission. Are you serious? Is this some sort of bad movie? Is this serious? And what does it say about us that we could believe for 1 second this ridiculous version of what happened on 9/11?
The government has lied about 9/11 repeatedly and used it to dominate the Middle East, while creating an evolving police state here, encroaching on civil liberties at home. And of course, building a new world order.
There is a chance for the President of the United States to use this disaster to carry out what his father, a phrase his father used, I think, only once, and hasn't been used since, and that is a new world order.
Where diverse nations are drawn together in common cause to achieve the universal aspirations of mankind.
We know now that September 11th of 2001 was the beginning of what we might call a new world order.
The first building hit at high floor by the first plane is in smoke.
On September 11th, 2001, American network television relays the U.S. government's immediate finger-pointing at Osama bin Laden and the Afghan Taliban.
From bin Laden, but the Taliban ruled.
We all know perfectly well that the Taliban has been housing and comforting Osama bin Laden.
The Taliban have been warned. The U.S. is going to retaliate against Afghanistan itself.
We will make no distinction between the terrorists who committed these acts and those who harbor them.
Even though the alleged terrorist list doesn't include any Afghans, President Bush consults neither the U.S. Congress nor the United Nations and attacks Afghanistan within a month of September 11th.
Certainly, the U.S. has been involved in many acts of indiscriminate bombing and killing and targeting of Afghans, and that has created enormous resentment, especially immediately after the war when they were trying to hunt down bin Laden. There were enormous bombing incidents, which I think were completely inappropriate to the target, given that you were aiming to bomb maybe a few Taliban, but you were using these enormous munitions, killing a lot of civilians.
And that's true with the people in Afghanistan as well. More innocent civilians have died in Afghanistan as a result of high-altitude bombing by the United States Air Force than died in the September 11th attacks in New York. We need to keep these things in mind.
A year ago yesterday, on November 6, 2012, tens of millions of Americans went to the polls to re-elect President Obama. On that same day, thousands of miles away, a 39-year-old Afghan farmer named Mohammed Qasim disappeared after being arrested by U.S. Special Forces. He was never heard from again. Months later, an Afghan shepherd saw a feral dog digging at human remains now believed to be the farmer's. His decaying body was found just outside a base used by a team of U.S. Special Forces known as the A-Team. The body was found just weeks after U.S. Special Forces were compelled by the Afghan government to leave the base amid allegations of torture and murder. More and more bodies were soon found just outside the base located in Wardak province, west of Kabul. In total, Afghan officials say they have uncovered the bodies of 10 Afghan men, all of whom disappeared after being arrested by U.S. Special Forces.
Many Afghans have experienced firsthand the West's empty rhetoric about human rights and freedom in the prisons of Bagram and Kandahar.
چې ډېر وخت وروسته بیا د خلک په زړه کې بدوالی رامنځته کړي چې امریکایان چې دي دوی دهشتګرد دي، دوی د شپې په خلکو باندې حملې کوي، هغه سره ظلم شوي، هغه انتقام اخلي.
This is the US military's brand new $60 million detention center at Bagram Air Base in Afghanistan. It will replace the former notorious prison, a symbol of detainee abuse for Afghans following the death of 2 inmates in 2002.
The prisoners who will soon be moved here remain in legal limbo. They haven't been charged with any crime. No civilian lawyer has ever been allowed inside Bagram.
Abdul Rakib's case was one that is unfortunately very typical of the types of injustice that you see that are ongoing in Afghanistan right now. His story is an all too familiar one because there are literally hundreds of families of individuals who have come forward to complain that their sons are being held without legal justification by the United States government.
I think that it's clear one of the main reasons that America went into Afghanistan was to try and get Al-Qaeda dismantled, the organization which committed the 9/11 atrocity.
Really?
Well, you don't think so?
Well, how come Al-Qaeda put the heroin business out? They took all the poppy growers and stopped the production of heroin.
What would you have done?
Wait, now how much of that illegal heroin was propping up the international banks with laundered money, and when it dried up, the first recession happened?
Yeah, that's going on today. Yeah, this whole idea, this notion that Biden's going to pull troops out of Afghanistan. No way. It's a cash crop. It's a cash crop. Come on. Our military is there protecting the cash crop. Get a grip.
Well, now that we're back in there, we aligned with the poppy growers, and the heroin business is back up full swing again. I thought we fight a war on drugs here.
All right, Jesse,
Seems we're not.
Afghanistan is the world's largest supplier of opium, and since the US invasion in 2002, the growing of opium poppies has reached staggering proportions, with money from the British government being used by opium farmers to plant gigantic fields of poppies. The BBC confirmed in April 2004 that since the invasion and occupation of Afghanistan by British and American forces, poppy production has reached an all-time high.
It was revealed in October of 2009 that the CIA had been funding puppet Afghani leader Hamid Karzai's warlord brother for the last 8 years. He is the lead opium dealer in the region. It seems the same cartel that was dealing drugs in the 80s and 90s never stopped. After all, how else could the government fund black operation programs across the board?
The Karzai regime has whole sections of it which are drug supported, and we can't touch it. We turned Afghanistan into the major supplier of heroin for the world. It happened under CIA supervision.
I will tell you, Director Deutsch, as a former Los Angeles police narcotics detective, that the agency has dealt drugs throughout this country for a long time. Director Deutsch, I will refer you to 3 specific agency operations known as Amadeus, Pegasus, and Watchtower. I have Watchtower documents heavily redacted by the agency. I was personally exposed to CIA operations and recruited by CIA personnel who attempted to recruit me in the late 70s to become involved in protecting agency drug operations in this country. I have been trying to get this out for 18 years, and I have the evidence. If you have information about CIA illegal activity in drugs, you should immediately bring that information to wherever you want, but let me suggest 3 places. The Los Angeles Police Department, For the record, my name is Mike Rupert, R-U-P-P-E-R-T. I did bring this information out 18 years ago, and I got shot at and forced out of LAPD because of it. I've been on the record for 18 years nonstop, and I'll be happy to give you, Congressman, anything that I have.
Thank you, Mr. Rupert.
My fellow citizens, at this hour, American and coalition forces are in the early stages of military operations to disarm Iraq, to free its people, and to defend the world from grave danger. Our nation enters this conflict reluctantly, yet our purpose is sure.
These are the oil fields of the Middle East, the greatest pride.
Yeah. We entered this conflict reluctantly. Get the fuck out of here.
Of all, Iraq is the world's second biggest oil producer, and its conquest gives America a vast base from which to dominate the Middle East. It's been a conquest achieved at any price, including truth.
I joined in 03 because I was broke. I needed money, but I was a young American kid. I wanted to fight in the war. I joined up, month out of training. I arrive in Baghdad, Iraq, January 04. Saddam's been captured. And I get there, and the guys that I'm serving with have been there for 6 months already. They were there in 03. And I go, well, you know, I think it's come out that, you know, these people had nothing to do with 9/11. There was no Iraqi on those planes. We can see around here, there's no Al-Qaeda, there's no terrorist syndicates in Baghdad or Iraq. Saddam had stamped them out. And I asked my buddies, well, you know, we're here to find weapons of mass destruction. And they laughed at me. And I said, well, you know, we're here to help the people. And they laughed at me. And I said, well, what's our mission? What's our goal? I thought we were going to find the people that did 9/11. I thought we were going to get these weapons of mass destruction. I thought we were going to help the people. And they're like, all we're trying to do is make it home alive.
Meeting notes from the afternoon of 9/11 show Donald Rumsfeld tasking a top aide to find the best info fast, good enough to hit Saddam Hussein. He asks the aide to get evidence from Wolfowitz of a Saddam connection with UBL, Osama bin Laden.
We all looked at each other like, what are they talking about? Who the hell? Saddam Hussein? Bin Laden hates him, thinks he's a heretic. There's no connection between Saddam Hussein and Al-Qaeda.
The word goes out to the CIA, FBI, and all the intelligence services. Find the connection.
The war on terror involves Saddam Hussein because of Al-Qaeda connections, because of his history. He's a danger to the American people. And we got to deal with him. We've got to deal with him before it is too late.
They thought when September 11th happened, perfect, great opportunity, a great excuse. If we can tell the American people that this is part of the war on terrorism, that this is somehow linked to Al-Qaeda, that Saddam has nuclear weapons, then they felt they could actually manipulate the American people, their grief, their suffering, their anger in such a way to carry out something that they had been planning since 1997. And it was a perfect pretext for them, but it had nothing to do with the reality of September 11th and nothing to do with the reality of their own assertions, all of which have proved to be complete lies.
Now, 3,000 Americans are dead. We don't care how many Iraqis you got to kill. Killing the civilians is part of war. And that's what they sent us into Baghdad with.
The justification would be, oh, we were attacked on 9/11. Therefore, we have a right, based on the UN Charter's provisions for self-defense, to kill anyone, anywhere in the world, anytime, as long as we argue that they are linked to that initial attack. which may be years ago.
We should keep in mind that CNN, which many believe to be a liberal network, had a memo from their top news executive, Walter Isaacson, in the fall of 2001, as the missiles were falling in Afghanistan, telling the anchors and the reporters, you need to remind people, anytime you show images on the screen of the people who are dying in Afghanistan, you've got to remind the American viewers that it's in the context of what happened on 9/11, as though people could forget 9/11.
Where we talked to several people who told us that various friends and relatives had died in the bombing there, in that collateral damage. Nick Robertson, CNN, Kandahar, Afghanistan.
And we would just remind you, as we always do now with these reports from inside the Taliban-controlled Afghanistan, that you're seeing only one side of the story, that these U.S. military actions that Nick Robertson was talking about are in response to a terrorist attack that killed 5,000 and more innocent people inside the United States.
Kandahar, and we juxtapose what we're hearing from the Taliban with a live picture of the cleanup that continues in Lower Manhattan, Ground Zero, again, a 24-hour operation that has not ebbed. 5,000 killed that day, back on Tuesday, September 11th, their biggest crime, as civilians going to work that day.
And yet, we know statistically, the best estimates tell us, that more civilians were killed by that bombing in Afghanistan than those who died in the Twin Towers in New York. And the moral objections that could be raised to slaughtering civilians in the name of retaliation against 9/11, those objections were muted by the phrase war on terror, by the way in which it was used by the White House and Congress, and also by the news media.
Now, that's what we call a carte blanche. In other words, it's an open invitation to kill worldwide, anywhere, anyone. That's a precedent which is extraordinarily dangerous to the civilized international community.
We don't really give a damn what anybody thinks. We rub everyone's face in it. We're Americans and you're not. And we're talking the Roman Empire here. I mean, we'll do anything we want to do, anywhere we want to do it. And you're either with us or against us. And multilateral institutions like the UN are incidental and irrelevant to the powers that be. That is the image we're sending to the world. That is what much of the world feels about this country right this minute.
It's now reliably estimated that up to 10,000 civilians may have died in the attack on Iraq. Joe Wilding, a human rights observer in Baghdad during the bombing, saw the suffering.
I and a few other observers were being taken around the hospital by one of the doctors, and he was introducing us to some civilian casualties from the previous day, and he was called away to the emergency room. So he took us with him, and as we walked in, there was a woman probably in her mid-30s just screaming over and over, we're farmers, and she had a little boy in her arms. He was 4, his name was Mohammed, and the whole right-hand side of his face was cut up by shrapnel. And then there were other women in there. There was a little girl, and she was just screaming every time anyone moved her, screaming when they took her into the x-ray room, screaming when they brought her out again. And the doctor pulled back the covers and showed us this huge gouge out of her thigh, and they were trying to clean it, and they didn't have enough anesthetics or painkillers or anything. So she was just screaming and screaming as they tried to clean this wound. All of them were just in so much pain. And then Fateh, the youngest of the daughters, was 8, and she was killed in the bombing. And Fadma was just stained with all their blood and just going from one to another, picking them up.
Why is it wrong for dictators and terrorists to kill innocent civilians, and right or excusable for the United States to do exactly the same?
Well, the United States doesn't do it, and if we did it, it would be as reprehensible as what the terrorists do.
The United States doesn't kill innocent civilians.
No, the United States does not target civilians.
The Pentagon is refusing to comment on a once secret sniper program being used in Iraq. It involves baiting suspected insurgents and then gunning them down at long range. CBS's David Martin reports.
Snipers on all sides are a fixture of this war.
Iraqi snipers pick off any American soldier can draw a bead on. U.S. snipers lie in wait to catch insurgents in the act of planting roadside bombs. But some American snipers have taken it a step further, setting out pieces of bait such as detonating cords or rounds of ammunition and killing Iraqis who pick them up. Basically, we would put an item out there and watch it, the leader of a sniper team said in a sworn statement given in a case in which one of his men is charged with murder. If someone found the item, picked it up, and attempted to leave with the item, we would engage the individual, as I saw this as a sign they would use the item against U.S. forces. Gary Solis, who teaches the law of war, calls it illegal.
It doesn't take a lawyer to know that you can't kill civilians merely because they stop to pick up something that you've planted there.
Army officials insist bait is only used against genuine threats. It's set out at night in areas where insurgents are likely to operate.
Who knows for what purpose the individual is stopping to pick it up? They may be scavengers. They may want it for who knows what reason. That does not make them a lawful target.
In 5 years, nearly 1 million Americans have served military tours in Iraq. Their war experience have left some bitter and disillusioned about what they've seen and done there.
There's a term, once a Marine, always a Marine, but there's also the term, eat the apple, F the Corps. I don't work for you no more.
At this conference of war veterans, some said they often witnessed cover-ups of the killing of unarmed civilians.
We would carry these weapons or shovels with us because in case we accidentally did shoot a civilian, we could just toss the weapon on the body and make them look like they were an insurgent.
My officers explicitly told me and my fellow Marines that if we felt threatened by an Iraqi's presence, we should just shoot them and the officers would, quote unquote, take care of us.
The former soldiers and Marines said the official rules limiting force were routinely ignored or violated with the consent of their superiors.
We fired indiscriminately and unnecessarily at this building. We never got a body count. We never got a casualty count afterwards. Ladies and gentlemen, things like that happen every day in Iraq. We react out of fear.
And they said videos they shot document their allegations of indiscriminate violence ordered by their commanders.
In this video, he states, I think I just killed half the population of Northern Ramadi, F the red tape. On April 18th, 2006, I had my first confirmed kill. This man was innocent. I don't know his name. I called him the Fat Man. He was walking back to his house, and I shot him in front of his friend and his father. The first round didn't kill him after I had hit him up here in his neck area. And afterwards, he started screaming and looked right into my eyes. So I looked at my friend who I was on post with, and I said, well, I can't let that happen. So I took another shot and took him out. He was then carried away by the rest of his family. We were all congratulated after we had our first kills, and that happened to have been mine. My company commander personally congratulated me, as he did everyone else in our company. This is the same individual who had stated that whoever gets their first kill by stabbing them to death will get a 4-day pass when we return from Iraq. There's one incident where we got into a firefight just south of the government center, about 2,000 meters. We had no idea where the fire was coming from, and the way our rules of engagement were, pinpoint where the fire is coming from and throw a rocket at it. So with that being said, we still didn't know where the fire was coming from, and an 84-millimeter rocket was shot into a house. I do not know if there was anyone in it. We do not know if that's where the fire was coming from, but that's what was done. This man right here was my third confirmed kill. As you can see, he was riding his bicycle. Later on in the day, we went ahead and we had CBS Laura Logan with us, but she was with the other squad. And so she wasn't with us. So myself and 2 other people went ahead and took out some individuals because we were excited about the firefight we had just gotten into, and we didn't have a cameraman or woman with us. With that being said, Anytime we did have embedded reporters with us, our actions would change drastically. We never acted the same. We were always on key with everything, did everything by the books. The man on the bicycle, he was left in the street for about 10 minutes until we realized that we needed to leave where we were. And his body was dragged about 10 feet to the right of him, where his body was thrown behind a rock wall and his bicycle was thrown on top of him.
We got into Iraq in November of 04, and I was there until November of 05. I served as a medic with Troop F, 2nd Squadron, 278th Regimental Combat Team. After we finished the EOD escort missions, we moved on to another mission, patrolling the Kendi Street area, which is right outside of the Green Zone. Kendi Street is a relatively upscale neighborhood. Some of the houses in the Kendi area would cost well over $1 million here in America. This area, from what we were told, had no violent activity at all up until the point we started patrolling this area. I remember we were out on a patrol one day, a dismounted patrol, and we were walking by a woman's house. She was outside in her garden doing some work. We had our interpreter with us, and our interpreter threw up his hand and said, "Salam alaikum," which is their greeting in Iraq. It means peace of God be with you. And he translated back to us what she said. She said, no peace of God be with you. She was angry and she was frustrated. And so we stopped, and our interpreter said, well, what's the matter? Why are you so angry? We're here protecting you. We're here to ensure your safety. And that woman began to tell us a story. Just a few months prior to this, her husband had been shot and killed by a United States convoy because he got too close to their convoy. He was not an insurgent. He was not a terrorist. He was merely a working man trying to make a living for his family. A few weeks after this man died, the Special Forces team got some intelligence that this woman was supporting the insurgency. And so they conducted a raid on her home, zip-tied her and her 2 children, threw them on the floor. And I guess her son was old enough to be perceived as a possible threat. So they detained him and took him away. For the next 2 weeks, this woman had no idea whether her son was alive, dead, or worse. At the end of that 2 weeks, the Special Forces team rolled up, dropped her son off, and without so much as an apology, drove off. It turns out they had acted on bad intelligence. Ladies and gentlemen, things like that happen every day in Iraq. We're harassing these people. We're disrupting their lives.
بالنسبة يعني احنا مثلا قاعدين نايمين بالبيوت. لا نايمين بالبيوت. يجون يكسرون البوب ياخذون واحنا ما عندنا اي شيء. ما عندنا لا عندنا شيء، لا حد يضرب، لا عندنا سلاح، لا فشيء. ياخذون ولدنا، لا نقدر نطلع ناكل، لا نقدر نشتري، لا نقدر نشتغل. منين ما نروح قدامنا يعني شلون نعيش؟
That kind of thing where we're just, harassing people unnecessarily is really kind of part of daily life there. And eventually.
Yeah, well, I'm not going to name drop. I typically do name drop, but I'm not going to name drop right now. Many of you know who this dude is, right? This guy ran for president. I don't know. This guy's got some friends in mysterious places. What the hell? His name's Adam Kokesh. And I don't know. This guy's going to be a part of the future political arena, I guess. He seems more like a shill to me. Some of the things I've seen him do, some of the events, either way.
We set up a proper checkpoint, and I was relieved and went back inside. And the Marines that were there were checking almost every car that came through, and they found a couple of guys that had a bag of cash in their back seat. And they detained them on suspicion, and we're like, all right, well, we're going to detain them and interrogate them. And so they were zip cuffed and hooded. And I was told to go out and get them and pick them up. And so I picked them up in my Humvee, got the bag of cash, brought them back to the office where it was air conditioned, and sat them down, and was just keeping an eye on them. And then the interrogators got there, and they were like, why the heck are you guys being so nice to these people? They started roughing them up and throwing their heads against the wall and, you know, preparing them for interrogation. And they dragged them out of the office, and apparently they got actually reprimanded on the outside of the office by one of our officers for engaging in that unnecessary behavior. And then they interrogated them, and they found out that there was no reason to detain them any further. And the bag of cash was about this big, which would have been a lot of American money, but in Iraqi dinars, it was only about $10,000, $15,000. And so they let them go, just like that. And I can tell you, if that money wasn't intended for the insurgency beforehand, it was after that.
U.S. GIs antagonize simple Iraqis every day by searching them at random on the streets and in their homes.
They're going after people, Mujahideen or Muj, and they didn't have any idea which ones were the right ones, were kicking in the wrong doors, terrifying children, helicopters screaming over their heads at night.
Going hard.
And I'm trying to calm the women and children while the men were dragged and separated out and completely humiliated in front of their families. In that culture, it's a very big deal to be treated with respect in front of your family, just as it is in ours. But in this, I mean, it can mean a lot of shame.
But the best guarantee of our security is that people everywhere in the world are allowed to live their lives in decency and freedom, that the knock on the door is not the knock on the door of the secret police, and that in the end, that freedom is what they want in Iraq, what people want everywhere, and what we should be giving to them.
The most shameful moment came with a publication of a series of photographs depicting American soldiers inflicting all kinds of tortures on Iraqi prisoners. The so-called Abu Ghraib scandal shook the world.
The relatives already knew what was happening to their loved ones inside. They were being tortured and raped in the name of freedom.
Hey guys, this is Steve West, sports talk host on the college football voice of the South, Sports Radio 680 The Fan in Atlanta. Just want to say thanks to all of you for putting your lives on the line every day so that our freedoms can be preserved and the Iraqi people can taste them for the first time.
And all the while, what hypocrisy doesn't even begin to explain us talking about freedom and democracy.
We won! It's over! America! We brought democracy to Iraq!
It is a joke.
And through the creation of wars, several things happen. First of all, the companies which manufacture the missiles, the guns, the bullets, the uniforms, and all of the paraphernalia to do with warfare all make huge profits.
The American military elite seems to respond to the recurring need of waging wars of conquest, both to increase the control on worldwide resources and to maintain a healthy and productive war industry that is among the most profitable altogether. It only makes sense that also the tanks, the submarines, and the military planes that are produced every day must be put to use within a certain amount of time, just like any other industrial product we consume. President Eisenhower, himself a former general, was among the first ones to foresee the danger that a permanent military industry could represent for his country.
I get tired of saying that defense is to be made an excuse for wasting dollars. I don't believe we should pay 1 cent for defense more than we have to.
Before he left office in 1961, he gave a memorable speech that today appears as a lucid prophecy.
This conjunction of an immense military establishment and a large arms industry is new in the American experience. In the councils of government, we must guard against the acquisition of unwarranted influence, whether sought or unsought, by the military-industrial complex. The potential for the disastrous rise of misplaced power exists and will persist. We must never let the weight of this combination endanger our liberties or democratic processes.
Because the two world wars in this century were funded, all sides were funded by the same people. Provable. The same people that funded the Allies in the Second World War and funded the Soviet Union also funded Hitler. Why would someone want to fund all sides in a war? What is good is a war? Well, first of all, on one level, it makes vast amounts of money if you're lending money to all sides and you're also selling them lots of arms and all that stuff.
Once in the war, it was business as usual. In October 1966, President Lyndon Johnson lifted trade restrictions on the Soviet bloc, knowing full well that the Soviets were providing upwards of 80% of North Vietnam's war supplies. Consequently, Rockefeller interests financed factories in the Soviet Union, which the Soviets used to manufacture military equipment and send it to North Vietnam. This is why the war went on so long. And the bottom line is this: the Vietnam War was never meant to be won, just sustained. This war for profit resulted in 58,000 American deaths and 3 million dead Vietnamese.
And through the creation of wars, several things happen. There is a culling of the male population. Since the 1950s, we've had several reports from think tanks that feed information into the European Union, the British government, and also the American government, which are recommending depopulation. And there is several plans which we believe have been put in motion right now.
Depopulation should be the highest priority of foreign policy towards the Third World. Henry Kissinger, 1974.
There's a need for a new world order, but it has different characteristics in different parts of the world. Now, none of this may succeed this time, but this, to me, is sort of the outline by which someday, in the next few years,
Yeah, you'll be in a box, Chief.
By the 1970s, it was becoming increasingly clear that the population of Europe and white America was rapidly declining. Unless something was done, the expanding size of the population of third world nations would pose a serious threat to national security of Masonically controlled countries. Western consumer power and productivity would reduce, and as a result, they would be completely dependent on that of the third world population. Somehow, the gap between Western population and third world population had to be a bridge to restore Western supremacy, or more precisely, Masonic supremacy, at a global scale. In the 1970s, President Jimmy Carter commissioned the Global 2000 report. The findings of the report blamed virtually all of the world problems on the population growth of non-white people. The report went on as far as recommending the elimination of at least 2 billion people in third world nations off the face of the earth by the year 2000 in order to restore Western supremacy. Interestingly enough, also in the 70s, the AIDS epidemic broke out, claiming huge amounts of life in third world nations, as well as amongst the growing black and Hispanic population of America. It was said that the virus originated from green monkeys in Africa and was later passed on to the local population through either acts of bestiality or through consuming them as food. From there on, AIDS spread like wildfire across the African continent and later on to the rest of the world, claiming millions of lives. However, the story was just a smokescreen. On June 2nd, 1988, the Los Angeles Times published an article refuting the idea that the human AIDS virus originated from green monkeys. It uncovered evidence that the DNA composition of AIDS was totally inconsistent with that of green monkeys. In fact, it could be proven that the AIDS virus could not be found anywhere in nature and could only have ever survived in the human biological system. If the virus did not exist anywhere in nature, the question is raised as to where exactly the virus all of a sudden stemmed from. On July the 4th, 1984, the New Delhi newspaper in India called The Patriot published an article making the first detailed charges of AIDS as being a counter-biological warfare agent. An anonymous American anthropologist was quoted claiming that AIDS was genetically engineered at the U.S. Army's Biological Warfare Laboratory at Fort Detrick near Frederick, Maryland. Then on October the 30th, 1985, the Soviet journal Lieutenant Eternia Gazetta repeated the charges made by the Indian newspaper, making it an international controversy. All this, however, was easily passed off as a communist rhetoric by the Masonic West. However, on October the 26th, 1986, the Sunday Express became the first Western newspaper to run a front-page story confirming the findings of the Indian and Soviet newspapers entitled AIDS Made in Lab Shop. The outbreak of AIDS has been linked to vaccine programs around the world. The internationally respected London Times newspaper published an article at the front-page story on May the 11th, 1987, entitled Smallpox Vaccine Triggered AIDS. The article establishes a direct correlation between the smallpox vaccine administered by the World Health Organization to an estimated 50 to 70 million people.
All right, wait for it. This is definitely going to get one. Here we go.
In different Central African countries and the subsequent outbreaks of AIDS in those regions. The World Health Organization is the medical wing of the United Nations. The evidence suggests that AIDS is a genetically engineered virus spread through vaccination programs in third world countries, germ warfare against the innocent and the weak, aimed at eliminating an entire populace off the face of the earth. AIDS is nothing other than the modern-day final solution, and all of this for the purpose of installing an economic policy that would give complete global domination to the Masonic West.
Hey, let's get some ice cream.
How about this one? Pistachio, almond fruit fudge, butterscotch delight.
Ingredients: zinc trisodium aspartate, sorbitol and bisulfate, oxide beta-carotene, lactic acid carabine. Grade A milk emulsified, maltodextrin alkalide, silicon dioxide, lots of sugar. Hey, all right. Calcified synthetic salt, artificial barley malt, glycerin and aspartate, folic acid. That tastes great. Monosodium glutamate, dehydrated calciumate, soybean oil, butter fat, caramel sensor. I'll eat that. Hooray for sugar, cause we love.
Soybean oil. I love that with my chocolate milk. Ugh, disgusting.
Chocolate chips, we want more of, and cakes and ice cream, want to shove it down our throats real fast. Here's a candy bar, you tried it?
Hey, let's all see what's inside it. Gelatinized triglycerin, phosphate, soybean lecithin, deoxylite, trisilicon, dipped in chocolate.
Bring it on!
Citrus enzymes, DHT, powdered milk.
Sounds good to me!
Baking soda, carob gum, carbohydrates.
Yummy, yum!
Monosodium glutamate, zinc disodium maltonate, whole grain flour, yeast and fat. Time to eat it. I'll do that. We like sweets a lot, so give us all you got, and we'll stuff them in our bodies till they make our insides rot. We like sweets a lot, so give us all you got, and we'll stuff them in our bodies till they make our insides rot.
Geithner said he would be open to the idea of a global currency last week.
Yeah.
Those conspiracy people had said and suggested that for years.
Right.
You're not wrong.
Cash is becoming weeded out. Cash will most likely be eliminated or extremely difficult to use in many situations, so that you'll have to use the global currency or the electronic currency.
By using hard currency, an individual can evade detection and vital information is lost since hard currency transactions are untraceable. As a result, moves are being made to replace hard currency with a system that relies totally on electronic funds transfer. In other words, a system that relies totally on cards.
Attention, citizens! Due to the financial irresponsibility and incompetence of your leaders, Cobra has found it necessary to restructure your nation's economy. We have begun by eliminating the worthless green paper, which your government has deceived you into believing is valuable. Cobra will come to your rescue, and out of the ashes will arise a new order.
Trails in Swindon have heralded the first signs of a move towards the introduction of smart cards and electronic money on a national scale in the UK. The Mondex scheme is pioneered by NatWest and Midland Banks and British Telecom. Inside a smart card is a microchip which calculates every single transaction, not only financial transactions, but records every single thing for which it is used. It can serve as a credit card, a building society passbook, library card, travel card, phone card, and quite possibly an identity card. Although an identity card would reveal much detail, it would not be able to locate any one person precisely at any given instant time. This would require some sort of tracking device that could be put on and detected wherever that person may be on the globe.
This is Aaron Russo, a filmmaker and former politician. To his left is Nicholas Rockefeller of the infamous Rockefeller banking and business dynasty. After maintaining a close friendship with Nicholas Rockefeller, Aaron eventually ended the relationship, appalled by what he had learned about the Rockefellers and their ambitions.
And then I said to him, what are the ultimate goals here? He said, the ultimate goal is to get everybody in this world chipped with the RFID chip, and have all money be on those chips and everything on those chips. And if anybody wants to protest what we do or violate what we want, we just turn off the chip. Just turn off the chip. Just turn off the chip. Just turn off the chip.
Turn off the chip.
In 2005, Congress, under the pretense of immigration control and the so-called War on Terrorism, passed the Real ID Act, under which it is projected by May 2008, you will be required to carry around a federal identification card, which includes on it a scannable barcode with your personal information. However, this barcode is only an intermediary step before the card is equipped with a VeriChip RFID tracking module, which will use radio frequencies to track your every move on the planet. If this sounds foreign to you, please note that the RFID tracking chip is already in all new American passports. And the final step is the implanted chip, which many people have already been manipulated into accepting under different pretenses.
They have to find a better way to identify the bad guys, or the rest of us are going to stay home and watch the world go by on television. But we need some system for permanently identifying safe people. Most of us are never going to blow anything up, and there's got to be something better than one of these photo IDs, a tattoo somewhere maybe. I wouldn't mind having something planted permanently in my arm that would identify me. If we don't do something, people are going to stop flying. If they stop flying, and I don't go to the Giants games, it means the bastards have won.
Do you know how to keep your children safe? We'll tell you tonight.
In the next year, you'll be able to use your teen's cell phone to locate them 24/7. Younger children will get a small global positioning device hidden in their wristwatch or backpack. And just around the next high-tech corner, an electronic chip like this that can be implanted under your kid's skin.
We have a Florida family who are really pioneers in a brave new world. They have volunteered to be the first ever to have microchip identification devices implanted into their body.
After 9/11, I was really concerned with the security of my family.
I wouldn't mind having something planted permanently in my arm that would identify me.
In the end, everybody will be locked into a monitored control grid where every single action you perform is documented. And if you get out of line, they can just turn off your chip. For at that point in time, every single aspect of society will revolve around interactions with the chips. This is the picture that is painted for the future if you open your eyes to see it. A centralized one-world economy where everyone's moves and everyone's transactions are tracked and monitored, all rights removed, where every single...
You've been setting up blockades all over town. Don't think it's for a street party.
Attention humans. By order of the High Evolutionary, you are commanded to vacate your homes immediately. Those who do not comply will be vacated by force.
Please, please don't! Sharp buckethead! Keep away from me, no!
Has the High Evolutionary gone nuts?
Identification confirmed. Next. Step inside. You are under arrest for unauthorized altering of an identification implant. Come with us, rebel.
No, wait! It must have been defective. I'm not a rebel!
We've got a crisis. We're at war. The enemy is plotting to attack us. This proposal will allow us to gather intelligence information on that enemy that we otherwise would not get.
Another sign of a closing society is when government starts to surveil ordinary citizens. Mussolini pioneered this. Hitler set up neighborhood spies. East Germany developed the Stasi, and China today has the Dangan system. You need a surveillance apparatus to...
Neighborhood spies. Neighborhood spies. Nowadays, we call those Karens.
close an open society.
So it should come as no surprise that they have been tracking, tracing, and databasing our lives for years. Many people are aware that the Bush administration engaged in warrantless wiretaps on American citizens. What they don't understand is that it's come out in court that all the major telecommunications companies have been secretly storing every piece of data received from our phones and our computers and handing them over to the National Security Agency.
You heard about the government secretly listening in on phone conversations without a warrant, but there is evidence that your email is also being tapped.
Really, one of the most damning Big Brother Orwellian issues is the fact that the content, the audio of all phone calls is recorded and saved. Not just a record of who called who and when and how long the call lasted. No. I'm talking about the audio, every single phone call virtually in the world, recorded, stored, and can be accessed using dictionary keyword searches. And this information has been out in the public. At this point, it hasn't been reported in the mainstream.
Yeah, welcome back. Welcome to the broadcast, Mr. Waters, over there on Facebook. And welcome back, Yo Mama and Blood Raw Truth. Good to have you, gentlemen. Let's get some.
It leaks out little bits and pieces here and there by certain people who then probably get a visit from the men in black threatening them or their family, their children, telling them to just shut up. People like this guy, a former counterterrorism analyst, Tim Clemente, who, after the Boston bombing, let it slip that all phone calls are recorded without a warrant, by the way. And CNN's Aaron Burnett was a little surprised. She says, oh, well, there's no way that we can get the audio of the conversation. And he clarified and said, oh, no, yeah, there is a way. I mean, everything's recorded. And, Aaron Burnett said, so they can actually get that? People are saying, look, that is incredible. Clemente says, no, welcome to America. All of this stuff is being captured as we speak, whether we know it or like it or not. Of course, you're supposed to have a warrant with probable cause and reasonable suspicion and specific information about the crime that is believed to have been or about to be committed. But the fact that the billions and billions of phone calls are recorded, have been recorded without a warrant, puts the NSA in a very particular situation. So Edward Snowden has this information, is saving it as his dead man trigger. Various other people have this information as well. Proof. I mean, just imagine. It's one thing to be saying this. It's another thing to actually have the NSA official documents verifying that this is what they've been doing.
Most of us know that our emails can be read and our phone calls can be listened into. But most people, I would have to say, quite naively think, well, if I'm not doing anything wrong, why does it matter? All you have to do is read history to know that in a closing society, you don't have to have done anything wrong. If there's a surveillance apparatus, they can listen in, and they, as other institutions erode, they can simply say you've done something wrong or use leverage through the surveillance to intimidate you. The Stasi, the secret police of East Germany, kept everyone in a state of fear and silence. For years, everyone thought they had a Stasi file on them. After the wall came down, it turned out that only 10% of people actually had a file on them. But all it takes is to know you're under surveillance to keep you scared and frightened. So this is one of the steps that I have a very personal relationship to, and have a lot of feelings about it, for the following reason. For a year and a half, every time I would try to take a plane, I would get my boarding pass, and it would have a quadruple S high security threat mark on it. And they would take me out of the line and do that whole extra security check thing. And I kept asking, what's up with this? Why are you doing this? Why are you doing this? And finally, this nice young TSA agent said, oh, you're on the list. And I'm like, the list? I'm on the list? How was Nazi Germany able to round up so many Jews so quickly? Because they had mechanized the list. Again, how did Pinochet manage to round up mass arrests? Mass arrests are always a hallmark of a closing society. Thousands, tens of thousands of people in a notorious soccer stadium. The list. Every closing society keeps a list. David Antoon, highly decorated Vietnam War veteran, served his country bravely, criticized the Iraq War.
I mean, you can take WMDs and the Gulf of Tonkin, and you can see the manipulation of information to bring the American public into accepting and approving of a war that really had no basis. So I started writing about that. It wasn't long thereafter, I noticed that every time I would purchase a ticket and board a flight, I would receive boarding passes with 4 S's on them. Every time I travel, every time my children travel, every time my wife travels. Every time my 86-year-old mother travels. They're all on the watch list. So, you know, it's an inconvenience, but it's insulting.
And so when you want to close down an open society, you keep everyone under surveillance so that people increasingly become too frightened to stand up and speak.
There has been a long-held consolidation of ownership of the different medias, press, publishing, film, music, television, consolidated ownership into the hands of very few individuals, the multinational corporations. Today, there are half a dozen multinational corporations that are controlling the information and entertainment choices that people have.
The truth of the matter is that increasingly
The truth of the matter is that you're a crook. You're a crook. You and your fourth house for dropping out of the campaign, walking away from the primaries. The truth of the matter is that you're only skin deep on a socialist platform. The true roots of your soul are embedded deep in the communist Marxist system. You commie bastard. Get a grip, Bernie.
what we see, what we hear, and what we read is being controlled by fewer and fewer large multinational corporations.
There is no government, just a few multinational corporations that own everything.
In consumer news, economic factors may take some spring out of the Easter Bunny step this year.
Economic factors may take some spring out of the Easter Bunny step this year.
Economic factors may take some spring out of the Easter Bunny step this year.
Economic factors may take some spring out of the Easter Bunny step this year.
Economic factors may take some spring out of the Easter Bunny step this year.
The script. I've played the script collage before. It's brutal. It's brutal. It's so damaging. I mean, it really does light up the the scripted mainstream media, right? Really well. I've seen it overlaid on each other, like layered with all the other news. So it's like thousands. Holy man. Thousands of networks with the fucking script. Reading you, the general public, of course, not my listeners, but you, the general public, all the bullshit. All the same identical bullshit. This is a real threat to our democracy. 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 Yeah, you know. Yo, this is a real threat to our democracy. Yeah, I mean, are you fucking for real?
Factors may take some spring out of the Easter Bunny step this year.
Economic factors may take some spring out of the Easter Bunny step this year. Economic factors may take some spring out of the Easter Bunny step this year.
Economic factors may take some spring out of the Easter Bunny step this year.
Economic factors may take some spring out of the Easter Bunny step this year.
Economic factors may take some spring out of the Easter Bunny step this year. Economic factors may take some spring out of the Easter Bunny step this year.
Economic factors may take some spring out of the Easter Bunny step this year.
Economic factors may take some spring out of the Easter Bunny step this year.
Economic factors may take some spring out of the Easter Bunny step this year.
Look, guys, obviously this is no coincidence. The question remains, where are all these news stations getting their scripts from? Well, there are affiliate news services that supply packages and scripts to hundreds of stations around the country. Stations then have their anchors read the canned story with the generic script. Now, you might look at this and say it's just indicative of how lazy local news can be. But consider the implications of this kind of reporting for 1 second. Say it wasn't an Easter bunny, and rather the story being
RT. There's something about this mainstream news, like RT, Russian television. I think there's a lot more truth on this network than there is on others. But it's still got a bunch of bullshit attached to it. But look at this face right here. I haven't put it. Honestly, I don't have the technology. I don't know. I would love to be able to edit videos right now. I'm just not doing it. I'm just not. I guess I need a little bit of help in that department. But just take a look at his face and a smile, and then listen to the sound of the voice. It sounds a lot like at least 1 to 2 females on every network. Even the face is almost identical. They might change their hair color. Maybe I'll do it. I need somebody to... I think it would be great to make a collage of all the matching journalists out there. And I think that this profile right here is the most commonly used. This whole look right here. It doesn't exactly scream feminist, but it doesn't exactly scream approachable by your average heterosexual male either, right? The hair is a little older style. She's kind of planed a little bit. She's still packed on the makeup, but what is this thing on her neck? I don't know. All this shit. You got to question everything, right? All right.
mindlessly regurgitated was about a virus, a terrorist attack, or a report on war casualty counts. The bottom line is that people who watch the news tend to trust this information that then influences.
Oh, I agree. It's propaganda. I agree. Anything that gets by on cable is bullshit.
Their perception and decisions. So for these anchors to ask no questions, do no fact-checking, and hold no differing interpretation of the news they're delivering is not only absurd, it's downright dangerous.
You know, in the last days of the Soviet Union, you had dozens of newspapers, dozens of magazines, all kinds of radio and television stations. The only problem is that all of that media was controlled by the Communist Party of the Soviet Union or the government.
Do you really think he thinks that's the problem? Do you think this fucking clown right here thinks that's a problem? Come on.
The Soviet Union. We are moving in that direction.
There is an illusion of...
You're proud to be a wheel on that train to communism. Bernie.
Of choice that's maintained when you can have 100 channels on your cable system. And, how many movies did the studios release a year now? All these different studios, and the music industry with so many labels, and magazine stands that go on and on and on forever. Well, the owners are a handful, 5, 6 different companies.
90% of the top cable channels are owned by the same giants that own the TV networks and the cable systems. More channels are great, but when they're all owned by the same people, cable doesn't advance localism, editorial diversity, and competition. And those who believe the internet alone will save us from this fate should realize that the dominating internet news sources are controlled by the same media giants who control radio, TV, newspapers.
I find it very interesting that a cat like this would, to me, the FCC is just a few steps away from being the FDA, right? They still, even today, probably more so. This is 2003, so there might be some ethics still in play, but not anymore. Not anymore.
And cable.
The 21st century. Cold-blooded killers. Against cold-blooded killers.
The human mind is like a computer. No matter how efficient it may be, its reliability is only as great as the information fed into it. If it is possible to control the inputs of the human mind, then no matter how intelligent a person may be, it's entirely possible to program what he will think. And yes, it's even possible to program people to laugh at the mere mention of the word conspiracy.
So using television as the prime example of how mental programming and mind control works, television is the most powerful weapon of psychological warfare in history. And yet television, for many people, is a member of the family in the household.
Yeah. At the time, as the director of the CIA, William Casey, I think it was within a couple of months after he made the following statement. He met his demise on a canoe accident. Something along those lines. We will know that our disinformation program is a success when everything Americans believe is a lie. So sometimes I feel like I'm beating a dead horse right now. Sometimes and right now, I guess. Combine the two. Right now will eventually be a part of some time. There's just not enough people willing to risk. It's the comfort zone. There's a few. I'm not going to discredit everybody between the two counties. There's a few. I guess the disappointment in there lies in the I'm fighting. Every time I go out and I go up against somebody in a conversation or an argument using mainstream talking points, this is where they come from. This is the I know their source. It doesn't matter. GOP, DNC. They're both garbage. So remind yourselves that when you're out there in public, the general eye, the G-pop, okay? That these people, they have limited resource. They have a limited resource. They have a limited vocabulary, a limited understanding, a limited acknowledgement of the facts. I mean, think about it. if these sources are their main outlet for news, right? Say that's been the trend in their life for like 25 years, quarter of a century. Just think about the damage that does to one's cognitive dissonance. I, for one, recognize it all the time. I see it on a regular basis, I do. It was quite the conflict I would find myself in all the time, regular basis, day in and day out over the last year and a half or so. I've been blessed with an immune system, unbelievable, that has given me this, this ability to go out there and stay in this fight and prove everybody wrong. Synchronicity is no joke. The backing from local law enforcement as far as staying within the law, people who support the Bill of Rights. I've made bridges with everybody who counts. I've burned bridges with those who expose themselves as the two frauds that they are, how they service the community. They grew, they've established a business and they want to insist that in order to come eat their sandwich or their tacos, you've got to put on a mask. Get a grip. No fucking way. It's time to start boycotting. Mass boycotts across the country on every single business that still pushes the mask. Force them to push back, right? Especially if you're in a state where there's no mandates now, everything's been lifted. I've never lived under that bullshit, but if that's the case, then why are they wearing it, right? But if they're pushing it on you and it's a small business, we got the right to refuse service to anyone. That's cool. Because now the mask is nothing less than a virtue signaling object on someone's face. It's multitasking. How about that one? A couple of ladies will get a laugh out of that one. It's exactly what it is. It's forcing you to breathe in your own carbon dioxide. Yeah, that's right. Your waste, your exhaust. Your exhaust pipe is your mouth. What do you think your asshole is? Let's get to it. Flatulence and belching are exhausts. That is what your body is releasing. Just think about it. It sounds absolutely horrible in comparison to breathing your own breath, but imagine if it were the other way around where, yeah, right? No, we're not going to go there. But look, I can't imagine ever finding a competent doctor telling me to my face in person that the mask was medically sound practice and breathing in your exhaust makes perfect sense. Fuck Walmart, yo mama. I haven't shopped in Walmart in nearly a decade. Yeah, absolutely, Mr. Waters. And if people are, 12 individuals still participating in the garbage, you're part of the problem, not the solution. Don't get it twisted. No other notion should cross your mind other than that. Your ignorance is on you. Please subscribe, like, and share if you've liked the content you've just heard. Thank you. We'll continue on with our normally scheduled programming.
Why don't we look at all of those
But there's a reason. There's a reason. There's a reason for this. There's a reason education sucks. And it's the same reason that it will never, ever, ever be fixed. It's never going to get any better. Don't look for it. Be happy with what you got. Because the owners of this country don't want that. I'm talking about the real owners now. The real owners, the big wealthy business interests that control things and make all the important decisions. Forget the politicians. The politicians are put there to give you the idea that you have freedom of choice. You don't. You have no choice. You have owners. They own you. They own everything. They own all the important land. They own and control the corporations. They've long since bought and paid for the Senate, the Congress, the state houses, the city halls. They got the judges in their back pockets. And they own all the big media companies, so they control just about all of the news and information you get to hear. They spend billions of dollars every year lobbying to get what they want.
How often do I talk about the lobbyists and how trash they are? Total garbage on the United States. It's a massive fucking garbage heap right in the middle of the United States. Actually, we'll fucking call it right in the middle of D.C. It's a fucking landfill of laundering facilities. These fucking lobbyists. They all got an agenda. People they know. Shit they're trying to pass. Yeah, Carlin. He wasn't a fucking comedian. Carlin was a truth teller. Carlin was breaking down the facts. For fuck's sakes.
Well, we know what they want. They want more for themselves and less for everybody else. But I'll tell you what they don't want. They don't want a population of citizens capable of critical thinking. They don't want
a population of citizens capable of critical thinking. I know individuals that can't even complete that sentence. They would have to read it several times over. All that's intentional. The dumbing down of the American public. Disgrace. It's a fucking disgrace.
well-informed, well-educated people capable of critical thinking. They're not interested in that. That doesn't help them. That's against their interest. You know what they want? They want obedient workers. Obedient workers. People who are just smart enough to run the machines and do the paperwork and just dumb enough to passively accept all these increasingly jobs with the lower pay, the longer hours, the reduced benefits, the end of overtime, and the vanishing pension that disappears the minute you go to collect it. And now they're coming for your Social Security money. They want retirement money. They want it back so they can give it to their criminal friends on Wall Street. And you know something? They'll get it. They'll get it all from you sooner or later because they own this place. It's a big club, and you ain't in it. You and
I'll say it for the man. They fucking own this place. It's a big club and you ain't in it. I've been saying it for years. This dude was not this dude was a commentator. This dude was an analyst, an analyzer of the facts. He put things in the context which made you easily comprehend what was going on. But I fear that many people just laugh at it back in the day.
are not in the big club. By the way, it's the same big club they used to beat you over the head with all day long when they tell you what to believe all day long, beating you over the head in their media, telling you what to believe, what to think, and what to buy. The table is tilted, folks. The game is rigged, and nobody seems to notice. Nobody seems to care.
Did Hitler get elected on Monday and start throwing people into ovens on Friday? No, it was a gradual process. The first thing that Hitler did was start to write newspaper articles. Everything that was going wrong was the Jews' fault. They're the ones that caused all these problems. Did the Jews write their own newspaper articles and go, I disagree? So then the Jews had to wear the Star of David so we can tell who you are. Did they say, no, that's a violation of my privacy. I don't have to tell you. No, the Jews decided, well, it's a religious symbol. We love God. We should be proud to wear
Identity politics in play. Shaka.
Star of David. Eventually, the Germans came in and they broke all of the windows in all of the Jewish businesses in one weekend. The Saturday night was known as Kristallnacht, which is German for Night of Glass. Did the Jews rise up and say, "Now, damn it, you're violating my property. You shouldn't do that"? No. Gosh, we don't want to make the Jews.
No, they acquiesced. They acquiesced. It's exactly what they did, according to the mainstream media, the news. 6 million, huh? I got questions.
Any madder than they already are. Don't piss them off. They've got guns. Eventually, the Germans are loading them up into cattle trailers on the trains. Where do you think you're going, on vacation? Where do you think they're going to take you? Well, now you're cold and naked, and they're walking you into the ovens where you're going to go to mass execution. Is it time now to raise your hand and say, you know, I tend to disagree with all of this? Bang! You're dead. It's too late to complain. You should have complained at the beginning, when you at least had a chance. How bad do things have to get before you do something? Do they have to take away all your property?
I've answered this question a few times. And I'll tell you, I think 100% has to do with the fear tactic. It will convince people that this is the right thing to do, to give up the weapons, to give up the freedoms for safety and security. A good number will do this. And again, putting aside when you ask the question, do you trust your government? Most people will tell you no while they're standing in line for a sleever. Wrap that around your fucking head for a moment.
Do they have to license every activity that you want to engage in? Do they have to be throwing you on cattle cars before you start to say, now wait a minute, I don't think this is a good idea? How long is it going to be before you finally resist and say, no, I will not comply? Period.
Well, I got the answer to that. I think for the majority of businesses, we can start with them. I think it's going to be real pain. It's going to take real pain for them to stop submitting and to take back their own power. But that's just me.
Sooner or later, you got to draw a line and stand your ground, whether anybody else does or not. That is what liberty is all about.
You like being a puppet, sir? You like being a puppet for the New World Order? Oh, stop. Hey, you're going to talk about 60,000 people? You're going to talk about 60,000 people? We don't want to hear this nonsense.
How do the American people know?
Our boy Giuliani just got the question, are you a member of the New World Order? And he kind of just laughed it off. He didn't deny it. Building 7. That's all I got to say. Rudolph.
That 9/11 was a stage, was engineered by you, David Rockefeller, the Trilateral Commission, the CFR, and Bilderberg Group, sir. How do you know it was a stage? It's a question. Answer my question. You're a CFR scum. You are CFR New World Order scum. You and David Rockefeller will never have a New World Order. 9/11 was an inside job, and Brzezinski is responsible for it. 9/11 is an inside job. You are responsible for Brzezinski. You will never get a New World Order. Never. National sovereignty will prevail. The New World Order is going down, sir. You can laugh. Wake up, people. Wake up. Research the New World Order. This is important. Look it up. Investigate it.
How did you let this happen? Wake up out there. You know, it's your children. Don't you care? Look what these people are doing to you.
Well, I don't think the notion here is that people don't care. I just don't think the notion. I think I think that the facts are is that people don't know. People don't know. They've had the wool pulled down in front of their eyeballs. In fact, in front of their nose and their mouth, right? For fuck's sakes. It's the Wizard of Oz. It is the Wizard of Oz. You're born into, you know, stability, civilized society. You don't know much about evils or hate until you start going through the cycles of life and you learn about fear and conquest. You learn about adapting and overcoming and facing your fears and then exposing the lies. It's when you start exposing the lies and you pull the curtain back and you see and expose the truth for what it is. This entire entity would be held hostage on their own merits if we, the people, were just to simply form a united front and take back the power. It just takes a united front. I don't know another way to get that message out. A mass lack of participation, a united front, a big fucking no in the sky. We're done. We're done with the system. It's broken. We're out. Time for something new. No more of the old. Move away, bacon. Time for sizzling. It's almost over. Bear with. I'm almost done. I know. You're just tolerating me. You're probably already unsubbed. All right.
All I know is that first, you've got to get mad.
New World Order wants a global system where one small central authority of individuals can then dictate a policy that's going to be distributed down to the rest of the world, everywhere, in the smallest little town in the middle of nowhere in some remote country.
They believe that somebody must rule. After all, people are too darn dumb to know how to rule themselves.
I'm not comfortable with that at all. Who elected these guys to run the planet?
They figured that that's their role.
Who do we owe the money to? I'll tell you who we owe the money to. The Rothschilds, the Oppenheimers, the filthy rich banksters that are running this system, that our corrupt prostitute politicians gave the power to these tyrants to do.
Now, did you just say that you are Lucifer?
I am Lucifer.
Okay, define Lucifer for me.
Pure, virtuous, wholesome, innocent individual that's out to help people.
Lucifer is?
Yeah.
Say that again.
Lucifer cast out of heaven for his jealousy. Of what, you may ask? His jealousy of the free will of mankind that was given to them by God. He protested this free will, and he got exiled from heaven along with his followers. The myth is that he created a lake of fire in the bellows of hell. Again, the Bible is a premise built on fear to control a population. A spiritual connection with God, that's more likely the way to go. We know that scriptures can be tainted. Seminars, messages, lectures, and sermons alike. All I ask is everybody do their own research and come to their own conclusions. I say it on a regular basis. All right, we're almost through it.
Lucifer is a pure, holy,
virtuous.
Now, is he the Lucifer that God created?
That's the same one.
The problem's created secretly. You then use the media, which isn't difficult, to wind up public opinion in relation to your manufactured problem, wound up that public reaction, then openly in the public arena, in the parliaments of the world, in the newspapers and on the television, offer the solutions to the problems they have created.
That kind of thing where we're just, harassing people unnecessarily.
The banksters who are behind all of this stuff finance each side of the war. They do this every time. We're being manipulated.
On October the 26th, 1986, the Sunday Express became the first Western newspaper to run a front-page story confirming the findings of the Indian and Soviet newspapers entitled AIDS Made in Lab Shop.
And then I said, so what are the ultimate goals here? So the ultimate goal is to get everybody in this world chipped with the RFID chip and have all money be on those chips and everything on those chips. And if anybody wants to protest what we do or violate what we want, we just turn off the chip.
I'm as mad as hell, and I'm not going to take this anymore!
On the outskirts of the national capital today, black limousines with darkened windows converged on a hotel where private security guards imposed ironclad control. The limos carried royalty, political power brokers, and industrial titans to a secret meeting that will last all weekend. It's known as the Bilderberg Group. Could their objective be world domination?
We are opposed around the world by a monolithic and ruthless conspiracy that relies primarily on covert means for expanding its sphere of influence. It is a system which has conscripted vast human and material resources into the building of a tightly knit, highly efficient machine that combines military, diplomatic, intelligence, economic, scientific, and political operations. Its preparations are concealed, not published. Its mistakes are buried, not headlined. Its dissenters are silenced, not praised.
Out of these troubled times, our fifth objective, a new world order, can emerge, a new era.
Well, there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. And those of you, one or two, three of you hanging around, really do appreciate it. Who knows? I don't even know what to think of this anymore. It is what it is. We ran it. We got it through. There's 2 parts on YouTube. I guess I'll go on there and change the titles. Hopefully I don't get a warning or a strike on that garbage. We'll see what happens next. Thanks, everybody. Appreciate it. Yo Mama, Aaron Waters. I think we have BRT in there. Kim, if you're still around. Anyways, whatever. All right. Most people have gone back to work or doing what they got to do. It's Friday, and there's definitely better things to do than sitting here watching this thing. All right. It'll be here when you get back. Thanks for tuning in. And we're going to shut her down, boys and girls. See you.